Hi, everybody. I am Paul Vasey, and I am honored to be here, part of World Unity Week. Thank you very much for inviting me to be on this. It's much appreciated. And for everyone being here and making a difference, that's what we're here for. So that's absolutely wonderful stuff. So hopefully we can build momentum as we're going along with all these different projects. So what I've got for you today is basically my passion about money, about helping people with money. So I'm going to talk about my story. I'm going to talk about some basically what we're doing in financial literacy and how I got involved with it. And actually, I'm also going to finish off with some little basic hacks that you can actually think about for yourself, for your own personal finance, and also to start talking to teens and anybody else about, which will help them. So a little bit about me. I was originally a business studies teacher in the UK for about 12 years. So from there, I became a big financial literacy advocate. And through my teaching and through my experiences, I ended up getting into game design because it was a natural progression from creating resources in the classroom. So originally, when I was in the classroom, I would teach business, and you would have marketing, external influencers, you'd have finance, you'd have human resources, you'd have all these different aspects of business, and we would teach them. And you start with what's a cookie or a biscuit, and and you design your packaging and everything else, and kids would love that. They would do all about recruitment and motivation, and it was easy. And then we got to finance, and I say, right, today, kids, we're going to talk about finance. And before I even finish my sentence, the kids would go, "Can't do it, sir." I was like, "Well, what do you mean you can't do it?" He said, "It's math." And that was one of my big aha moments. I mean, because I remember when starting teaching, one of the things that I was weary of was actually, and nearly everyone in the class was as well, as they were weary of teaching finance and learning finance to be able to teach it. And actually, it's actually far simpler than you realize, but there's a huge disconnect between math and money. So one of the things I did in a class just to get them going was I got a Monopoly board and I ripped it, and I basically changed all the different properties into businesses, and I changed a few things like income or revenue and expenses and all those things. And I gave them this, and I said to these kids, I said, right, I am not teaching you, I'm not telling you how to play it. It's based play like you think about Monopoly. That's all you need to know. Off you go. And they were playing it because it was pretty intuitive. And one kid wanted to buy the jewelry store, but he didn't have enough money. And straight away, one of the other kids, because they were allowed to make up their own rules, said, "I'll go in with you on this." So I'm watching this. I'm not even helping them, but I'm watching this because they just like 10 minutes before said they know nothing about finance. And they basically said, well, it's £10,000. Right. Well, I've got 6,000. You've got 4,000. We'll do a 60-40 split on it, on whatever money comes in. So I walked up to them. I said, right, when you say about money coming in, well, that's called revenue or income. Oh, right. Okay. And then later on, they started splitting the expenses. And I said, well, every time you spend something, that's called an expense, and there are fixed expenses and variable expenses. All right, got that. So now, just from those two little conversations, I was able to speak about income, revenue, expenses were fixed and variable. And later on, I was even able to find out how much profit they made per customer. So what I found was that kids know more than they think they know. They just don't know what the words are, but they can figure out the concepts. I also had to teach basic math as well. And math was very much about confidence, because the first year that you teach math, you learn math, you got the platform, the base level, just like building a house. Then once you got that done, the second year you're adding this much to the original, and the third year is you got this much, this much, and this much. And what I realized was, if the base was not there, everything else just fell down. So I spent time getting them to rewrite the rules, explain the rules in their own words, create examples and problem solutions. And they had to have the answers, and they had to teach the person next to them. So in the end, once their confidence was up, math was very easy. And this all played into personal finance. So from there, I created Cash Crunch games, and I basically started with an online, a physical board game. It became an online game, teaching kids from ages 13 to 21, credit scores, credit cards, saving, spending, checkbooks, cash flow, budgeting, all these great things. And then I created a physical board game for ages 5 to 12. So the online game was bought by another company, and that's gone nationwide now, and there's a big push. So if you ever hear of Personal Finance Lab and the budgeting game, that was mine. And now I have a junior board game, and I have resources. And I'm currently working on a junior board game and making an online version, which, because money does not change, the principles are still the same: save, checking account, spending, a little bit of budgeting, a little bit of opportunity cost, and all these basic concepts. So that's where I am in terms of becoming a financial literacy advocate, as well as going into schools. And I've also created a statewide competition in Idaho, which we hope to build on as well. So it's really, really exciting stuff. So I just want to bring in some statistics for you to see where, so the fact that in the real world, these are everyday statistics, and it's because of the lack of education that this is where we are today. So we'll just quickly go through these. So one of the things, 90% of arguments are actually started with money, which is absolutely crazy. 20% of Americans don't save any of their annual income. So all the money they earn on a monthly basis, 20% do not save a dime of it, which is absolutely bonkers. Over 40% of Americans have less than $10,000 saved for when they retire. And people have been working for over 30 years, and yet they've got less than $10,000. So 4 out of 10 people. 2/3 of Americans would struggle to scrounge $1,000 in emergency. So if the dentist, or they need a new stove, or they need new washing machines or tires or something for the car, they will not be able to pay with cash there and then. They may have to borrow or use a credit card or something. And half of Americans currently live paycheck to paycheck, which is scary. So if you think that everything they earn and everything they earn, they spend, and then all of a sudden, if they have an emergency fund, or they want to go on holiday, or they want something that's unexpected to spend, they haven't got $1,000 to have that. So they'd end up having to borrow again, or credit card, which is scary. And financial planners say that 40% of people are actually worried about running out of cash as they get older. So it's quite a miserable forecast, really, of what's going on. Just a couple more. 18% of workers earn over 100 grand or more are still living paycheck to paycheck. So that tells me it's nothing to do with actually how much you earn. It's actually to do with your money skills and your money habits. 54% of student loan holders didn't actually figure out how much they thought they would be paying each month. So that's crazy. You're borrowing money, but you don't know whether you can afford to pay it back, and you don't actually know how much you spend each month against what you earn. Nearly 1/3 of Americans pay the minimum on their credit card each month. So basically, they're paying the interest each month and still have the main amount that they've spent purchasing these products is still outstanding. So that's a big problem, because that just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs, because credit cards also increase your limits every now and again. So from going from $1,000 credit card limit to a $2,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 to $20,000, scary stuff. 43% of Americans spend more than they receive, and they use their credit cards to finance the shortfall. So that was another thing we spoke about. I mentioned earlier that they, living paycheck to paycheck, and maybe they have to spend more on unexpected expenses. And guess what? Credit card, it works. And this one, credit card debt. The average credit card debt or interest charged in a yearly basis is $904. So imagine that you're earning your money each month, and then on top of that, you've got $904 of extra money over the year to find to pay interest. Now, what could you do with $904? And actually, that's after tax for you. So maybe about $1,100. How long would it have taken you to earn $1,100 to pay off your $900 of interest? Adds up, doesn't it? So another thing, 1 in 4 parents report that they almost never talk to their children about household finances. So you can imagine this now. You've got all these problems that are actually happening, with credit card debt, emergency funds, debt, paycheck to paycheck, and everything else. And parents are probably embarrassed about finances. So they don't want to talk about what they've done, but also maybe that they don't know how to start a conversation about money without being seen to be nagging them. So in the end, what happens is perpetuates, and it's a vicious cycle. So you never end up breaking the circle. So a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. And we use money every single day, but 25 states in the US only mandate some form of financial literacy. And that could be a 30-minute lesson, or it could be a course, but only 25 states mandate some form of financial literacy. So how many students in the US are actually going through school, then going to college without having a clue? No wonder there's $1.4 trillion of debt at college, because they are not knowing what the expenses are and actually how much money is going out each month. So it's a scary minefield, and this needs to be addressed. We just need to basically clue these kids in to being able to make a difference and manage the money so they can break that cycle. So here you are. I am literally going to just give you a few personal finance life hacks that will enable you to start this conversation. And these are some of the ones that I believe, if you follow, your money habits may change as well. There might be something that you learn or something you go, good. So the worst case is you'll go, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was doing that and I can change that. Or the best case is, yep, already know that. Let me tap myself on the back. It works, and let me share this with others. So money's so simple. This is your net worth over here. So when money goes in, your net worth goes up. Sorry, I don't want you to teach you to suck eggs or anything else. I mean, this is the basics of money. So it gets simple. When you actually spend money, your level goes down. Simple as, right? So the only way you can either increase your money or your net worth is by putting more money in or reducing your expenses. Those are your two things, really. Either putting more money in, where then it becomes a vicious cycle because you're forever chasing that dollar and your quality of life goes down, or you reduce those expenses. And somehow some people think by reducing your expenses, I'm going to go without and my life's going to be horrible. So I'm going to just change that, tweak that ever so slightly for you. So the first one is learning the value of money. I mean, at the end of the day, if you value something, you will look after it. So think about when you get your phone, your first ever phone, and you're always wiping it and you're putting it down and you're looking after it. Or in a new relationship with boyfriend, girlfriend on your phone, and it's like, no, you say goodbye. No, you say goodbye. No, you say goodbye. No, you say goodbye. And all those silly things in relationships, to the point that when it's, I don't really care, right, see you, bye. Your behavior changes as your value changes. So now from a phone where you're forever wiping it to just throwing it on the table when you get in, simply because your value changes. So with this, let's apply that to money. So let's say, for example, a student gets paid $12 an hour, and there you go, $10 and two $1 bills. But Uncle Sam wants some of that money, because he does. And then you're left with $10. Oh, All right, you're left with $10. So now every hour that you work, every 60 minutes, you get $10 after tax. That's what you have. So now let's apply that to the value of money. So when you go and buy something, you've got to think, I only get $10 an hour. Is it worth my time and effort? So for example, you want a sandwich, you want a ham sandwich or whatever you want, and it costs you $5. Is it actually worth 30 minutes of your time? And you might go, So you might start thinking about finding something of better value for your money. A cinema ticket. You know, when you go to see a movie and you say, that is the worst 2 hours of my life. Well, was it worth 48 minutes of your time to earn enough money to go to the cinema? What about a game console? So now it's 25 hours. So imagine working 5 hours a day for 5 days a week, like a school day. Is it worth a full week's worth of work to get one of these? That's your reward. Is it worth your time and effort? How about a phone? Is it worth 80 hours of your time? Now you could say, well, I don't need all those features, or I don't need the latest phone. I can go for one less and it'll cost me less. So therefore, I don't need to earn as much money, or spend as much time earning that money. So you can see that you're adding value to your decision. Now, money is very much like ketchup. When you get a full bottle of ketchup, you don't use it sparingly. If you actually sit around the table at dinner time and there's people using ketchup, and they pour the ketchup on the plate, and half of it's not even eaten at the end, and they pile on the ketchup all over it. They're not sparing at all with it. But guess what? Towards the end of the bottle, when there's hardly any left, they're very sparing with the ketchup for the dinner. So it makes you think, well, actually, they didn't need all that ketchup at the beginning anyway. Just like with the last bit of milk when you're putting on your cereal. Do you put loads on it? Do you put a little bit on, or do you try and make it last so you don't have to go to the shop again? So think about that and money. So you think about kids or anybody else with a ketchup when the bottle is full. That could be when you've just been paid. And then at the end, when the bottle's nearly empty, that could be your last day before your next paycheck, when you're just barely living paycheck to paycheck. So with that in mind, what if we put some money aside first? So anytime you get any money, let's say you put 10% away. Now, all of a sudden, you got slightly less, but I guarantee you that when you've got less of something, you're going to take more time thinking about that decision. So therefore, you're seeking more value for your money because you don't want to waste that money. Meanwhile, that 10% is away and it's building up nicely. So what happens is, remember when we talked about 2/3 of Americans will struggle to scrounge up $1,000? Well, over time, you wouldn't be one of those statistics. 20% of Americans don't save any of their annual income. Again, you wouldn't be one of those statistics because you now have money aside. So if anything goes wrong, you have money to pay. And half of American households currently live paycheck to paycheck. Guess what? 10% has gone aside. So then at the end, you're not living paycheck to paycheck. You have some money in the bank in case of emergencies or anything else. And you could even put that money towards paying off your credit card. Some simple habits there. Now, okay, the next one is opportunity cost. Basically, it's the cost of choosing one thing over another. Now, it might be price, it might be quality, it could be any of those things. So you could choose to buy something more expensive, but it lasts longer. Levi is doing that advert now saying, stop buying cheap stuff, buy our stuff because our stuff lasts longer. Or do you buy the cheap stuff and buy 2 or 3 items of it, maybe for the same price as the Levi? Your decision. So just quickly, here's a couple of decisions for you. Branded versus non-branded clothing. I mean, if you think about it, branded clothing, you're buying something to advertise that company by wearing their logos. So you're actually marketing for them. But is the branded item better in quality? Does it fulfill the purpose that you require, i.e. you're not naked, or do you look the part, or is it going to protect you? What's the purpose of buying it? What about zip codes where you live? Do you have to live in this exclusive area, or can you live literally across the road in a different zip code and save yourself some money? And what about traveling? For the sake of an hour of your time, there's peak and off-peak travel. When does peak travel change, and is it worth it? So these are the things you can be thinking about. So for example, do you want, if I had to offer you now $500, would you take an Amazon gift card, or would you want a holiday that I pre-purchased for you? Your choice. Now, comparison shopping, we always do it. We always do price saving, but let's just look at behind that. So every dollar that you save basically means that it's less time that you actually have to work to replace that money, because you still have it, which also means that you could, with the savings, you could actually put those savings into your savings account or into your investment, or pay off your credit card. So by saving $1 or saving something here, there, and everywhere, you're not having to earn that extra money. So like I said, with the $10 an hour, and you save $10 on an item you're buying, that's an hour less that you actually have to work. This is a great one, instant gratification. How many purchases have you actually made that if you'd waited 24 hours, you would look and go, I wish I hadn't bothered, or I missed out on, I bought the first thing I saw and I wish I'd seen that one. So sometimes when you see something over $100 or something like that, stop, think about it, and come back the next day. And if it's meant to be for you, it won't go by you. This is a classic. Oh, everything's on sale. I bought a jacket on sale. I saved so much money, right? You didn't. $100 product is on sale and reduced by 40%. Now, unless you were actually planning on buying that product initially, then yes, you've saved $40. But if it was an impulse buy and you thought, I hadn't even considered it, but it's such a great deal, I bought it, you've just spent $60 more than you had planned, which means that if you're only earning $10 an hour and you only get so much a month, that $60 was used for that purchase. Now, what have you gone without? Where were you planning to put that money originally? Would it have been to pay off your credit card? Would it have been to do savings? Would it have been to go towards your holiday fund? Or would it have gone towards food? What else could you have actually bought instead of buying that? All right. Classic. Too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people they don't like. Sometimes people buy things just for show. And when they go home afterwards, they go, why did I put myself under this much pressure? You're just trying to impress people for basically the wrong reasons. So just look at what you're doing. I have to have that handbag. I have to have those shoes. I have to have that jacket. I have to drive that car because people will think less of me. If they think less of you, to be honest, you're not in the right circle. So let's just look at this one step further. So there's difference between owning something and owing something. All right. So this is where your net worth comes in. So, hey, I've got the latest Range Rover or Land Rover, but do you? Because you may well have a car payment. That's debt. I have a beautiful house. It's a multi-million-dollar home on the hill, blah, 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 blah. But you have a mortgage payment. The bank owns your money. Bank owns your property. So you don't own that. What about TV? Did you use a credit card or a store card? Well, until it's paid off, it's not yours. So thinking about this, you've got own and owe. And that equals your net worth. So when someone says, what's your net worth? Don't forget to take out what you owe, because these are not yours. That car is not yours until you've bought it. That house is not yours until you've made all the payments. That TV is not yours until you've actually made those credit card payments. So just one other little thing here. Numbers are huge. Sometimes you can get lost in the numbers. And by this is like the US debt years and years ago. Now look at that. It's massive. But then money can be made from government level to business level to personal level. So recently you're looking at $38.5 billion recent budget cut. Wow, great, woohoo! But in reality, let's look at this. That big number there, you can relate to that number there. So the amount of income is 21.7. The budget, oh, money spent 38. We got new debt 16.5. Our previous debt, what we owe already, is 142.7. And then we've only made $385. So basically, whenever you get money, you have to understand what the numbers say to you and know what you have in terms of income and expenses. Otherwise, you can get lost in numbers and they just are not relevant or do not make sense. Now, just finally, one last thing that I think is a great way to get a conversation going with students is through money, through games. Now, when you play games, as I mentioned before, when I was talking to you about my students, when you play games, kids will figure out the rules. It becomes an experience, so they're remembering because they're creating the experience about them. And a kid's favorite subject is them, because if they know something, they will not shut up about anything. Classic example. Think about a kid when they just get, before they learn to drive, they would sit in the back of the car and they wouldn't say anything to anybody or you as the parent driving them around. The moment they get their first driving lesson, they will say to you, oh, your hands aren't at 10 to 2. Oh, you didn't mirror signal maneuver. Oh, your speed limit, you're going too fast. Because you've given them a little bit of knowledge, they will want to impart their knowledge on you and they will not shut up. So games are a great way of doing that because the games become about them and their decisions. It also helps with communication skills. It helps with them with problem solving. It helps them with listening to what's going on and actually being able to apply what's going on. It also helps with failure. If they don't get it right, they don't get in a strop and throw the board across the room. They've got to learn to take these losses on the chin and be able to talk about it and figure out what they did wrong to get it right. And they also experience winning as well. So there's all these things that you can bring in on an emotional level. And then you can say, by the way, when you spent that, how much do you have? What did you do? This, that, and the other. Now you're talking about money. So here's three that I just pulled up straight away. There's mine on the left, Cash Crunch Jr. You've got Cash Flow, Robert Kiyosaki for kids. You've got the allowance game, and there's loads of other money games on the marketplace right now. You could even play Monopoly. Just get them handling money and making change. So again, my name is Paul Vasey. I was a school teacher. I make games. I'm a Finlit advocate. You can find me at cashcrunchgames.com or connectorgames.com. My email is there, paul@cashcrunch.